zile de reamintiri, să nu uităm de campus. Nu? Asta este logo-ul principal al acestei Universități de Vară și respectiv de conexiunile care urmează mâine să reactivăm ca al doilea calup, nu? În 2023 era botezat Universitatea de Vară Conexiuni și am avut deja conexiunile dincolo de graniță, chiar prin domnul Antoni Gall, care a făcut o prezentare atunci și a fost disponibil și acum să revină cu noutățile și experiența din Budapesta, respectiv Ediției, care este o universitate destinată ingineriei și arhitecturii și discutând au vreo 200 de studenți față de 300 cât are Universitatea Tehnică. În afară de ei mai este ăstea de stat, deci vă dați seama vreo 500 de studenți anual, respectiv mai au MOME, ăsta e Mohoinag, e o altă, ca să știți așa, legăturile cu cine avem posibilitatea să discutăm direct experiențele. La MOME sunt 15 studenți destinați mai mult arhitecturii în domeniul artelor și mai este o facultate privată care cele 4 fac calupul educațional pentru arhitectură în Budapesta. Domnul Antoni Gall poate reprezintă acea universitate care este cea mai deschisă astăzi dintre cele 4 către lume, pot să zic, fiindcă pot garanta acest lucru că este în Oradea, deci noi suntem lumea odată, dar pe de altă parte, dânsul care a ajuns în Budapesta din Australia și care, de fapt, a învățat limba maghiară începând din anii 90 și este cu științele limbii la cel mai înalt nivel, dacă poate să facă și decanatul acestei facultăți. Dar mai important este că nu numai vorbește limba, dar ne-a făcut să ne simțim destul de stânjeniți, aș putea spune, de cunoștințele noastre raportat la istoria arhitecturii din această zonă, care, într-un fel, nu înseamnă cunoașterea arhitecților care au fost premergători aici. Și data trecută, când a venit, a făcut o prezentare succintă despre domnul Vágó și Coșcaroi, dar Coșcaroi, de fapt, pentru el este cumva ca familia se simte adoptat sau nu, în adopție în brațele lui Coș, chiar dacă ei nu s-au întâlnit chiar față în față. Coș moare în 77 și el în 90 pune pe rafturile universitare și a bibliotecilor mondiale cu o ediție care este bilingvă, maghiară și engleză. Acea relație, că discutăm acum deja de această deschidere și interraționalizare între diferite culturi, el a putut de acolo să vină să vadă foarte transparent și indiscutabil valorile lui Coș la nivel internațional. Și ca atare, acest arhitect de început de secol, ca și Vágó, a ajuns să fie cunoscut datorită dânsului și dacă mai vreau să laud ușor și să luați exemplu cum e dacă te-ai dedicat cuiva sau meseriei sau unor cercetări, de atunci constant se duce la toate arhivele în care mai are șansa să găsească vreun element original despre Coș și anul trecut a mai scos 5-a carte, probabil fiecare încearcă să și traducă în limba engleză sau în limba română, va apărea anul viitor, am înțeles. cea care se dedică activităților Coș de la Sfântul Gheorghe. Domnul Coș, cei care nu știți, că sunt și din Moldova, nu? Câțiva care poate acum aud prima dată despre arhitectul Coș Caroi, pleacă din Cluj, face facultatea, universitatea în Budapesta în 1902 și începând din 1907, deja e purtat să rămână în Budapesta. El, o viață întreagă, a refuzat această cinste și a lucrat în Ardeal, chiar făcând cetatea Ciorilor în Stana, care este cumva la 60 de kilometri de Cluj și care, de fapt, a zis că de aia acolo, fiindcă el la jumătate distanță între Sfântul Gheorghe și Budapesta. Deci asta însemnând că el a avut cele mai mari lucrări în Sfântul Gheorghe în secuime. Muzeul Național Secuiesc este gândit de dânsul. În acest muzeu, acum, recent, s-a restaurat cu peste 5 milioane de euro și dacă, după Universitatea de Vară, fugiți până la Sfântul Gheorghe, atunci, până în septembrie, găsiți cea mai interesantă expoziție a lui domnul Antoni Gall, referitor la Coș Caroi, care eu sper că ar putea să rămână acolo permanent. După Budapesta a ajuns acolo, deci chiar a făcut traseul, cele două capete, numai că acum consider că a ajuns expoziția acolo unde-i locul. Spațialitatea lui Coș, cu toate informațiile sintetizate de un mare cunoscător al lui Coș în Sfântul Gheorghe. Rarisim ai ocazia să intri, să pui mâna pe clanța originală, să vezi prin vitraliu original și după aia să vezi schițele în original, cele care au dus la această performanță din punct de vedere arhitectural. Eu zic că astăzi în România asta este cumva deasupra informațiilor de la Casa Doarvaș-la-Roș. Anul trecut încă am zis doar de Doarvaș-la-Roș că e o minune și rămâne o minune, cu observația că în Doarvaș-la-Roș încă nu găsiți informații despre domnul Vágó. Până când aici găsiți o informație despre toată suita unui secol aproape, că de la începutul secolului 20 până în 1977 e aproape un secol de muncă titanică a lui Coș, care acolo puteți vedea cum a desenat ce a făcut. Și asta datorită lui Antoni Gall. Am făcut un preludiu prea lung, mă scuzați, dar așa se întâmplă dacă e lângă mine. Dacă n-ar fi venit, n-ați fi auzit. Acum, dânsul ne introduce în viața lor cotidiană din Budapesta, care înseamnă documentare și tot ceea ce va spune, inclusiv cu expoziția care a dus și ne-a promis că ne lasă până la sfârșitul evenimentului, cel puțin această săptămână, să putem savura ce fac, la ce nivel fac și cum am putea să rezonăm cu aceste lucrări. Mulțumim că ești aici și de aici încolo, în engleză, o să aflați noutățile din Budapesta și nu numai. Chiar.
Mulțumesc. Okay. So today I was going to talk to you about thinking about brownfield and industrial heritage and not just industrial but buildings from maybe the 1970s also, which are a problem, and maybe I will show you some solutions that I was working on, because last time I didn't show you any work that I was working on, so you can see some of these. So today I'll talk about a site in Oradea. It's just some ideas. Our university and the Rosh house as well, and hopefully also your university. We're thinking of maybe doing some workshop in the future on some of these sites. So this is just a start of the idea, the first time we talk about it. Okay? Then I'm going to show you two projects from Veszprém. Veszprém is in Hungary, near the Lake Balaton. And I did two projects, one in 2008 and one starting in 2019, which was revitalizing existing derelict buildings for cultural purposes. So I think you know this area here, maybe. And I was just saying, I think we're here at the moment, yeah, in this campus, and it's about the same distance from the main square as the castle of the bishop, yeah, over on this side. But yesterday we went for a walk from the main square to the castle of the bishop, and I think this is a very interesting axis of the city, and there are many parts of this which have not been restored or renovated yet, but there are also some parts which already shows that in the past, or quite recently, there have been some major urbanistic ideas about this area. And so I saw two areas. One is there in pink, when I gave it a number 1. It's actually very close to the Black Eagle Hotel. It's just it's the old shoe and textile factory area. The next one is actually in the park, and this is like maybe the House of Culture for the socialism, or I'm not sure what the exact name is, but I've seen these buildings in a derelict condition in many different places in Romania. You know, so I think there's a common problem with these buildings. Okay, so I saw these two buildings, and I saw the beautiful park, and I went for this nice walk, and we walked across the new area that goes across the road near the church there, which was also, I think, a very big urbanistic change. And so this is this area in a little bit more detail, and so you can see in pink these two sites, and you know, when you come from outside, it's easy to say anything, you know, so it doesn't really matter, but sometimes, you know, they can be useful, and if not, then it's not a big problem. So I was thinking that this is like a really nice walk, and these can be all connected together, and I think in the past, if I was looking at the way it's all set out, this is how in different times people were thinking. And so here you can see you know, so it looks like, you know, it could be Versailles or something, you know, it's all set out and so on. But then we see this, you know, and we think, you know, maybe it's a problem, you know. So what do we do with the problem? You know, we knock it down, you know, demolish it, take it away, destroy it, you know. And here's this other area, you know, I was looking at it, and this has the textile factories, and it has shoe factories. And I was looking, this looks really interesting. You know, I'm thinking, you know, there could be many interesting things happening here. So basically all I'm just saying is that, you know, there are some nice empty buildings very close to this axis going from the city to the castle, and maybe they could be used for something. And I was thinking, wow, it would be nice to work on these, and so we're thinking, and it'd be nice to work on them with students and think about this and so on. So there's some more pictures of this area as well. And it turns out that part of one of these buildings, you can just see in the black and white that this is an old photo, because part of this building was destroyed, but some of it stayed, was actually designed by Vágó. Okay, so there's actually a part of a Vágó building, remains part of a Vágó building in this site as well. There are many different ones, but one of these is actually by Vágó. So not only here, and not only some of the other buildings in Oradea, but also here we have a small part of a Vágó building. So what I was going to talk to you today was about two projects in this city called Veszprém. And in a way I'm trying to connect them to these two because they're not the same, but some of the issues are similar. So I'm using them as examples. Whether it's good architecture or bad architecture, I let you talk about it. I like them because I designed them, but you know, that's subjective. Okay, so what are we thinking about? And this was some of the information given about the European capitals of culture, and it was connected to the website Rethinking the Future, and it was discussing the projects in terms of repurposing the old. So this is how we use something from the past, again, in a new way, without destroying it. So I think it's sustainability, really, in a way. You know, it's not knocking down and making everything new, it's sort of thinking creatively about how to use things. And this project on the right, this is one that I designed, and it was one of the projects that was made from the funding for the European Capital of Culture in Veszprém. So there's Veszprém, so it's a little bit not so far away from us. And it's a smaller town, you know, it's smaller than Oradea. But it has a nice castle with lots of church buildings in it, and so on. And the first project I'm talking to you about is the renovation of an old cinema. But the cinema was made in the 1970s, and it was a very important product of the socialist period, and it was made with lots of concrete. And in that building, the idea was that this would be turned into a community, some type of community use. So we were looking at the idea of cost efficiency. If we destroy the building, we have to rebuild it, it costs a lot more. We needed to think about what are the needs for the town. And then later on, as I'll go in through the lecture, we also see that then this project actually started working very well for 10 years, and they found that they needed more things. So the second project I'm showing is actually like a follow-on from the first one. So the management of this project, these two projects, is together, and it's been existing. The first building was opened in 2011, so it's been working for more than 10 years as a model. Okay? And what these buildings do is that they're like a type of healing, you know, because when we see these sites, there's something wrong with them. You feel like, you know, it's not just painful, but it's painful to the eyes, but it's also, you know, painful to think about. You can see the building fabric sort of going into disuse and deteriorating and so on. But also it's the passing of time, and also what we understand about those periods in time as well. And so it's quite a challenge to reuse these buildings, particularly when that period, when they were made, many people have negative thoughts about that period, and you know, so there are all sorts of different issues in that sense. But the aim basically is to make a place where people are happy together, and it's also sustainable in terms of management, so it doesn't deteriorate again because we don't have the money to maintain it and so on. So you have to have a good way of operating these buildings. So for example, in this first project I'm talking to you about, this one had a concert hall and conference facilities, but also many of the groups from the music schools, the children, the pensioners, but for choirs, for singing, orchestras for music. They also had their practice facilities there, so they could go there and practice. And there were also theatre and so on, but there were also clubs for young people and so on. So there were many different things happening in this building, so it had quite a complex functional program. Now, Veszprém is not so flat like in Oradea. You know, it's more like this. Okay, but this is sort of what the city looked like. You have many cities in Romania which would resemble this in some ways. But what happened in the 1970s is Veszprém became modernized. And I think you know about this because you had this similar situation. And many countries in this region had this problem as well, where you had these one type of architecture, one scale of architecture, one idea about how to live, and then we have a new way of how we live, connected to infrastructure, roads, large buildings with lots of apartments and so on. And it doesn't sort of just go somewhere else, it comes right into the middle, and so they destroy parts of the city and build the new ones. And so it's like more than cutting, it's more like having a big hammer and, you know, hammering the city and then putting in the new ones. And so, as architectural ideas, you can say these were maybe nice buildings, or you can say I like this, or I understand the aesthetics, or so on. And this is actually one of these new project areas they built in the 70s. And on the right-hand side, you can see this big box. This was the cinema. Now, they only built the cinema out of this. The other buildings weren't completed. But this is the cinema. And actually, when I met my wife, because my wife came from this city, I actually went to this cinema in the 1989, and I said, it's a really good cinema. You know, it was like the big project in town. On the other side of the road, there was a tall building that had 20 stories. That was the other big building. You know, it was part of how advanced the city was. Okay, but within 15 years, this building was derelict. It was not being used. We know that we had problems with cinemas anyway because of the plazas and the multi-cinemas and so on. But basically it was just sitting there, this big concrete box. Not as good as your concrete box here in the park, because, you know, it's a very simple box, this one. But lots of concrete, no windows, and just there. So I had to think, what can we do with this one? This is how it was looking in the early 2000s, okay? And you can see here, this is where we introduced our building, but across on the other side of the road you can see the modernist buildings, and then on the top left you can still see the old part of the city. So it was like cut like this. So we had to think about how we make this project. And the idea was that this is this big concrete box that had big halls in it, which were really good, but it had no auxiliary functions. There was no place for people to stay, to have the changing rooms, or to have coffee or anything. There was nothing else. But because it was so much concrete, we thought, well, why don't we just like when we're building, we make scaffolding, you know, around it. So. Because it didn't even have a circulation system. So we made like scaffolding around it, and we said this is the circulation. And then on the other side of the scaffolding, we made these functional blocks, and we said this is for the theatre people, this is for the musicians and the orchestra to practice, and this one is for the people. And Veszprém is very cold and very windy, so we said it's going to be a big glass part on the northern side, so that the people aren't cold in winter, and so that the people from outside can see that cultural life is vibrant and it's a good place to go. So we added all these pieces together, and this was some of my visualizations for the project. And this is how the project was finished. And it was finished in 2011, and it became the main venue for a lot of the events of the cultural city in 2023. And now the people of the city, they like this building, even though many of them didn't like it before because it was old and derelict and part of the socialist system. But when you go inside the building, I'm not sure if you can see it. You can see on the right-hand side these steel scaffolding, and if you go there, you can actually touch the old building from the socialist period. It's all inside, like we covered it around, so you can still see it. So we don't say this period never existed. We say it's part of our life. Many people lived their lives in that period. It had a lot of effort, and there was one person who was working on this building in the construction, and he said he was also working when they made the first building. So he, as a young apprentice, he worked at the age of 17 or 18 on making the building, and he was still working when we made this alteration. So, and it has like these types of facilities inside. And this is at the back, where this is where some of the studios are on the street behind. So this is another one of these parts that we put around the old building. And at the end, many of us involved in this, we all put some money in, and they purchased a piano for this building. And this is everyone when they're handing the piano over to the building. So, so all I wanted to say about this is it was a derelict building. The one I saw yesterday in the park, it reminded me of the same. This ugly concrete building without use, and this was also a building the same way. I said, well, maybe you could do a lot of really nice things with that building, you know, and maybe there are some interesting parts of it, you know, it doesn't need to be completely destroyed, but that's just an idea, okay? And this is the second building, and this was made because many people were coming to the first building and saying, oh, we'd like a place to go for yoga, or we needed a place to have some dance classes or some different types of events. And so the person who was managing this, he was going, well, there's this other site, and I'll show you this one in a minute. There's this other site, this old children's hospital, not so far away, just a walk away, that's been sitting empty for 25 years. Maybe we could do something with that. And so we said, let's think about it. So there was no client, really. You know, there was no funding. But we got together and we sat down and we started thinking, and we did the drawings and the plans and so on. This is the site 120 years ago. It was actually made as an orphanage, the first building. And this is how it looked, you know. I think you have many buildings that look like this in Oradea as well, yeah? And this is the site. I think, you know, you've seen areas that look like this as well here. You can see, actually the part behind is actually now part of the university, but you can see the hospital, but next to it there's this big square building as well. This was a laundry. This is where they did all the washing the clothes for the hospital. So it was a big industrial building, and it was finished in 1981. So we had these two buildings. And so we started thinking that this site is actually along a nice walking area, and it's very close to some green parks, and it's then connected into the city and the castle and so on. So we thought, well, maybe we have to think about this in this sort of scale, that it's part of a connection together of the cultural and other facilities in the town. And so this is just a site plan. There was actually, we did the master planning, but there was a small parking area built. A parking building was also built on the site because there was not very much parking in the area. Okay, I won't go right into that. And the program was to think about how can we use the building, the existing structure, in the best way. How can it be flexible, and how can it work together with a minimum number of people every day, so it works with one entrance if necessary, or many entrances if necessary, depending on what's happening, many outdoor areas. So the two buildings, we thought that we'd link them together, and we thought the present building is not accessible because you have to go up steps. So we said, we'll make a new entrance facing the city, where you can come from the pedestrian entrance, where you can just walk into the building. And then we connect the two buildings together with a bridge, and they also have lifts and so on. And then that has a lot of storage in the ground floor where we can put chairs and tables and all the different things, because the idea was that it could be very flexible. And of course, you know, we actually did laser point clouds for this whole one. We did the whole assessment using the laser point cloud, and then we had to do very detailed drawings of the existing fabric as well. And I did this together with my colleagues and also many of the university students. We worked on this. And this is how the facade of the Children's Hospital looks. And this is the side facing south, where we've kept the area as a green park for people to come anytime they want. They can just sit and relax in the park. And this, for example, is how the two buildings looked originally. So on the other side, it's precast concrete post and beam system. You'd have many similar ones here as well. And then with a cladding system around it. That was the existing one. The one on the left is a traditional brick building, you know, with a wooden and tiled roof. And you can see, you know, the condition after even 40 years, 40, 50 years of the facade of the industrial building was not so good. But this is what we could make out of this one. And personally, I think that, you know, it was a challenge to make them belong to each other in a way. We used the colour to do this as well. But I think you can see there's a very big change in the quality of the environment going between the two. Yet both the buildings are predominantly keeping their original structure and their original materials. And we didn't have to change too much of the structure. So we had to think about how we took away partition walls, unnecessary elements and so on, but we didn't make major alterations to the structure itself. And so this is the old laundry building. And we kept the old staircases as elements outside. And this is how it looks now. This, for example, is how it looks. This is the walkway going into the city, where people are walking and riding their bikes, you know. So you can imagine it's not a very good, you know, thing to see. And this is how it looks now. And in this space, which was the old area for heating and so on, this is where they made the boulder room, you know, for climbing on the walls. And we made it so that all the windows or doors could open up. And we took away the fence, and we said that this is now opening onto the public street, and so that this is like increasing the amenity, and it's a space that especially the teenage people are liking because they like using this facility, for example. And this is the rear of the building, and here the building, it had like a cellar that was half in the ground, but the slope, it was on a slight slope. So what we actually did is we took away the soil back to the existing levels, and we made the ground floor from the rear a full floor, so you could go straight in. And this is basically how it looks now. And this area here became like an area for concerts and so on. And this is, I think before I showed you the view from the street, looking this way, and this is looking back, so you can see the bridge between the two buildings. And this on the right is actually the new entrance. It has a restaurant on the ground floor. And another thing we did is, the university is the adjacent site, and we convinced the university to knock down the fence between the two buildings. And then we were able to extend this paved area into the university area to connect together the two projects. And in addition, the university had a project where they were doing sport facilities and making a campus out of the area. So they also made lots of green areas and pedestrian areas and so on. So this whole area has started to work together. This is at night, so you can see this is the new entrance to the building from the city side. And there's, in the background, you can see the parking building, which services this area. And now on the right-hand side, this is actually the area where the two sides, the university and this side, are working together. And where the old chimney for the heating area, this was part of the furnace for the university, and it's been kept as a symbol. But you can see this is what it looked like. So there's the fence, and we were able to take away this rubbish and so on, and so that's, you know, there's a little bit of a difference between the two. And you know, these are just typical images of what this building was looking like, and then this is the same building after the whatever. And there on the left-hand side, you can see how this leads out to the green walkway to the city. This is inside this laundry building. So I found it was very exciting, these spaces, because you know they're like, you know, you wouldn't make spaces like this, but when you find them, they're really interesting. But there were just one or two problems. We had these columns in the middle. So our engineers were really good, and they're thinking about it, because they said we can't have this big flexible space if we have the columns in the middle. So with steel, we were able to bring the steel, and we made new beams, and then we took 6 columns away. The other thing that was really difficult in these buildings was the heating and the ventilation, because you know we had quite small heights in the industrial building and not very many spaces in the other building. So in fact, this was something I also had to work a lot on with the services engineers, because I didn't want to see any of these pipes going in the wrong places, you know. So it was like really complex part of the project was to do this, but it's working. And we even have the solar panels on the roof, but they're also able to create shade, so you can use this as a type of space as well. And this is the space inside the building where we took the columns away, and were able to make this space. And on the area around, we kept the 2 levels, and there's lots and lots of little practice rooms and rooms that can be used in different ways depending on what the function is. And there's curtains which can close it off to make a black box, and so on. And in this building, we just took out one small part and we put in the new stairs on the lift. Basically, that's the only part. It was a 3.6 by 3.6 grid, and we took out 6 of them. Six of the grids out of, you know, probably 40 or so. So it was just a very one small part where we changed the grid. And then we used we developed the glass ourselves. It's 3 levels, and we have this, because with some of the activities we don't want you to see directly in, but we want still to get some light, but we also want some shading. There's etched pattern which is able to block out the sun but still allow visibility. Okay, and this is the other building. This is the old main entrance on the southern side, but this is the inside of the building, you know? And I think you know this type of thing, you know? You have lots of these. And this is how it looks now. And this was the corridor. And this was the heating system and the cooling system for this building. And you can't see these anywhere in the building. We able to do it so you can't see them. So, you know, the only thing you can see is on the corridors. You can just see that the ceiling has a part where you can open it. But it's the original floor. And these are the rooms inside which have, therefore, yoga or dancing or just for meetings and so on. And they're different sizes, and they have this type of aesthetic. Okay. And these are some of the functions. You can see even they have like markets in the hall, and you can see they're doing the climbing and so on, and the children doing the ballet and whatever. Yeah. So those are those two projects, and I thought maybe I'd show them to you because there are lots of buildings here in Oradea as well that you can be doing things with and improving them, and it's not just because it's architecture, it's because it increases the amenity for the community. And this is something we've been thinking about a lot at the university, is actually, I'll show you in a minute, we go and have a look at the exhibition, but we've started an association called UniCore, and the uni is of course from university, but the core is actually, like from CO is like community, cohesion, the CO is like a really good word connected to being together and so on. And then the RE is like renovation, revitalization, renewal, all these types of things. But together it means core, which is like, the base or the center or the most important thing. And this is a big focus now. And so with our master studios and with some of our projects, we're looking at these things. And you can't do them just from a design point of view. You have to do them from a community point of view. So we always have, like in each semester, a workshop with community and with people. And so we're thinking that maybe it's possible to do some projects like with the textile factory here and the shoe factory and cooperate on some of these ones, because it's these problems, they're not just the same they're not just belonging to one particular place. We have similar problems in many places, and I think the problems in Romania have similarities, some differences, but many similarities. But maybe in Poland and Slovenia and so on, also we find these issues. We know that maybe in Japan it's different because they don't understand heritage and tradition in the same way, and they think of buildings in different ways. So there's a point where it becomes interesting to talk about it, but in terms of our region, I think that a lot of these issues are very, very, very similar. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. And then I wanted to show you our small pop-up exhibition, which I think, if I'm lucky, and I think Deodat has offered to help, maybe we're able to leave it here for a while, and it can stay here for a while. Unfortunately, there's only some small parts in English, and a lot of it is in Hungarian, but I think the pictures say enough about this one. And this is one where the students were doing projects looking at co-housing and housing in the outer parts of Budapest, but also some other times they were looking at old industrial buildings in the centers of some of the districts, and they were looking at different functions and how they can be done. And we were very lucky because we were able to travel to Japan, to Osaka, for the exhibition, and our students and some of our teachers were participating in this one. So the first two participants in this grouping of the UniCore is the Osaka University and our university. And I think we're going to be growing this one a little bit. So if we're doing a workshop here, I think we'll grow here as well. Okay, but we find that the students are learning about these types of issues. And in the first week we have a community workshop normally, and so they start to understand that it's about the program, making a brief, what can the needs be, and so on. Okay. These panels here, I think you saw those two. I showed you those two buildings, but one year some of our students went and visited this same city, and they made ideas projects using some of the industrial heritage. And this is one project where the students actually used the chimney on the adjacent site and the buildings there as part of an idea of how they could make something happen. Maybe something might happen out of it, but they had a good, it was sort of like a summer university like this one, you know, and this is one of the projects. And these are works by another of my teachers, and this is old factories in the town called Orst, which is near Miskolc. It's not so far from here. And these, you know, are really old and derelict, and these were restored for some digital archive functions. So there was a state archive, and they thought that these buildings would be really good for them, and so they were able to do the rehabilitation of these ones. One of the methods you can use for these types of projects is if you get single funding, like one time, to actually create the project, then if it's sustainable after this, so if you get the money to actually make it, if it's then sustainable, it's actually can work, because you know you wouldn't be able to get the money yourself, but if you're able to get the money, but then the project is working, and it's not costing so much and so on, then it's actually a good way. So this is what happened in Veszprém with the projects, is that we had them ready, and then when the funding came, then they were able to use the funding. But then the energy situation and all of these things, they've been considered and so on. And so the actual upkeep is not so high on some of these ones. So there are lots of issues you can think about. Some of our students are involved. We call this they have summer camps, and they go and they document folk buildings. You know, they go for 2 weeks in the summer, and they visit different villages, and they've been doing. This one has been going since I think 1976. Yeah, but even in 1912, our students were going to do this. But it's now nearly 40 years, or actually over 40 years, that our students has been doing this. And the first teacher is still alive, and he still comes sometimes. You know, he's like over 80, and he comes and he likes these sorts of stuff. But through this, the students get to understand the traditions and also the lifestyles and the environments often in the rural areas. Then another one is we have this group of students who work with historic buildings, and actually they learn also about how to document these types of buildings. So we now have the drones, which we can use with photogrammetric method, and we also have the laser for making the point clouds. And so we're starting to learn how to use these and teach the students. But you can use these with, like I have this one. I didn't have this bit, but I have an iPhone 4, yeah? And you can use this one to make the LiDAR, and also make the photogrammetric if you have them, so, and also with the iPad Pros as well. So we're now getting some of these, because a lot of people now have the means to access these tools, and you can use them for many, many things. So it means that very quickly you can get a lot of information, but you still have to understand it. So we're working now on teaching the students how to use these ones and what to do with them. Yeah. So these are some of the things that our university has been working on lately, but we're thinking that it's very important to connect this information that we can get about buildings very quickly. So for example, in some of these old industrial buildings and so on, if you have a good workshop with enough students and you do it properly, you can actually get like all the information about these buildings very, very quickly. And then it makes it so much more fun to actually then work with them and think about these things. But on the other hand, the other aspect, as I said, is understanding community needs but also understanding the physical possibilities that buildings allow. You know, which can mean historical monument constraints, but it can mean structural constraints, but also, you know, creativity. It's what you can get out of these ones. You know, so we're starting to work with this, and I think it's exciting. So there's some of the things we're working with. So I'd like to say thank you for being here, and maybe to open this pop-up exhibition because it just happened today, and now it's here, and so thank you very much. So,
Acum e momentul întrebării.
Yeah, I have a question. These projects that you showed us, they are actually projects made together with the students or through university, or it's just your project?
those two were ones that I did myself,
Okay.
but
The other
there
one.
were students involved. But in that case, the students were from my daughter's university because she studied at the opposition, you know. But with these ones, this is from one of my teachers. She's working with our students, but now we've made these studios and laboratories in the university, and we're bringing these in and we're doing them as projects in the master school, like in the MSc level, because we think that the students need to be able to learn these methods about co-design, you know, understanding community, understanding adaptive reuse at the university. So we're working very strongly on getting them. These are just examples to show, you know, what you can do, but you know, it's not impossible that some of in the last semester, the projects that were selected to go to Osaka, the local council is thinking of how they can use these suggestions, and we generally make a little publication as well of these and so on. And quite often they help the different participants think, because it's like maybe too early to actually start building next day, but it's very important to think about the possibilities.
And the idea is there, the seed is there.
Yeah. So it's sort of at that level we think this can be really good.
Thank you. And I have another question.
Yeah.
How do you choose your sites for this kind, for example, for this kind of exercise? Do you work together with the authorities, or just scavenge around?
Well, we have a lot of people, and there are a lot of sites. You know, there's just so many sites. So sometimes the sites find us, sometimes we find the sites, you know, and there's always more sites than we actually have the possibility, so we have to like select, you know, especially if we're putting like a whole master's year, you know, on one site, then we think strategically, we think, well, do we have the local authorities, is there a good need, can we get access to information, you know, we think about it, but yeah, you know, it's just so many of these situations, you know, it's just all around us, so yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Generally everyone has one they like, you know.
Okay.
You know, we said, but you had
It's
one
like
last year.
brainstorming with ideas for
Yeah.
the sites.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
For example, at this project, you say that to make this open space, you remove the columns.
Only in one path.
Yes, but what kind of construction system did you use instead, or to maintain resistance of the building?
But there we use steel,
Still.
because this was prefabricated concrete, so we had to build in the new steel, and when it was in place,
Yeah.
then we could take the columns out. You know? And but normally we would try not to, but in that building there was just these 6 columns, and it was a really useful space, so you have to think, is it worth it, is it too expensive, what's the benefit, what's the pro, what's against.
Find the balance between.
Yeah, we found a balance, and actually initially we hadn't even thought, and then then when the building was sort of like, you know, because they hadn't quite worked out the function properly, and we said, you know, in the last minute we put it into the into the budget that we need to take 6 columns out. But we didn't know exactly how it was going to happen. And then when we got to that stage, then we had really good engineers, and they worked it out how to do it, and it was the right decision.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Maybe I was late, but sorry. For the building, because you used so much glass, how did you prepare the building for these extreme climate conditions that we are facing now?
Well, in this one with the glass,
Yes.
I was very lucky because it's on the northern side of the building. So we had an existing building, and we put 3 additions. And the one on the northern side is the entrance for the people. It was very important to have the transparency. So it had to be glass. But because it's the northern side, it's not getting a high solar load. But inside that, and it's the same on this one as well. This one and that one. But which one are we doing? This one or that one?
That one.
Yeah. In that one, basically it's generally the northern side, and we have 3 levels of glass with an etching to help with the shading. So we're reducing the solar loads with through the glass. Okay, so it's got an inbuilt shading.
So the glass is
Yeah. So it doesn't need an additional external one.
shading system.
Yeah, and then it's a very specially made glass that's able to withstand these types of normal loads as well.
Because also because of the extreme conditions, weather conditions, the northern facade it will be very cold in winter.
Yeah, because it's actually 3 levels. It's actually about this thick, so it's actually got very good thermal qualities.
Okay, and what kind of the last one? What kind of energy source does this building use?
This one has a combination. It has some solar on the roof, like 70 something kilowatts, and they have this programmed. It's got an intelligent programming system for the services, and so they're able. Even in winter, we're getting quite a good. We're not putting heating back into the system. We're using it on site, and we're using it because there's lots of like hot water for the restaurant, and we have containers for keeping the hot water. So we're having it programmed so that they're pre-heating and so on. So we're reusing all of the solar, and this means that we're reducing the amount of energy we have to bring in from the outside, and then we have really strong controls on each room so that you only have to use the amount of heating or cooling that you need at any one time. So it's not like just heating everywhere also. So the person who's running this building is actually a services engineer as well, and it was one of his ideas that he could make an intelligent building. So it's got a very intelligent services control system. But the actual, in addition to that, it actually has some, in Hungary we still have natural gas, so it does have some natural gas, and it has heat pumps,
So solar panels, heat pumps, and natural gas.
Yeah, the natural gas is like auxiliary
Yes.
in order to do that, but with an overriding intelligent management system.
And
You can work it off your telephone, but he actually can do it. I've seen it happening.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Dacă nu sunt întrebări, mulțumim. Și pentru efortul de a veni până aici și pentru această expoziție care, spune domnul Gall, că ne lasă totuși să mai savurăm măcar în această săptămână și cu colaborarea dânsului ajungem până la Budapesta. Și da, trebuie să luați oxigen după așa o prezentare exhaustivă, să mai putem savura următoarea, care este vorba de 30 de ani de activitate a unui birou, cumva din aceeași gamă de oraș cum e Oradea, Kecskemét, și unde echipa de 30 de ani e împreună, poate luați un exemplu cum o să arătați voi peste timp. Mulțumim încă o dată.
Mulțumesc.